The air in the birthing chamber was thick, a cloying mixture of jasmine, frankincense, and the coppery tang of blood. My own, I presumed, though at that moment nothing truly felt mine. Not the pain that ripped through me, a relentless tide that stole my breath and clarity. Not the gasps that escaped my lips, sounding foreign even to my own ears. And certainly not the future of this tiny, squalling creature they were now placing on my chest. A girl, Your Majesty, the midwife whispered, her voice a reedy blend of exhaustion and awe. Her words, though meant to soothe, felt like a fresh wound. A girl. My heart, already a bruised and weary drum from years at court, intrigue, and the relentless demands of the Ptolemaic dynasty, sank a little further. Another daughter. The gods, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor, or perhaps simply a preference for unending drama. Another pawn in this endless bloody game of power and succession. Another potential for heartbreak and betrayal, another mouth to feed in a palace already overflowing with sycophants and schemers. I looked down at the infant, her face red and puckered, her tiny fists balled in defiant miniature, a living, screaming testament to the agony she had just endured. And I felt a pang of something akin to pity, deep and unexpected. She would need it, I knew. All the pity, all the strength, all the cunning she could muster. For this was Egypt, a viper's nest beneath a scorching sun, and to be a woman, much less a princess here, was to be a sacrifice waiting to happen. Just another bargaining chip in a never-ending negotiation. Little did I know this one, this tiny, seemingly insignificant girl, would not be sacrificed. She would be the one to wield the knife and to use the tip to carve her own place in the world. In doing so, she would forever reshape the very contours of it. She would have my name. Cleopatra. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Brandon, and welcome to the Time Travelers Club. At the time of Cleopatra's birth, Egypt was under the rule of her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes. He was known more for his love of music and revelry than for his political acumen, and his reign was marked by instability and the ever-growing influence of Rome. The shadow of the Roman Republic loomed large over Egypt, its power stretching across the Mediterranean. The Ptolemaic kings were increasingly forced to navigate the treacherous currents of Roman politics to maintain their own grip on the throne. Cleopatra the Seventh, Philopator, or father lover, if just fun facts, was born in 69. Ooh, salacious man. You know,
She's a father lover and she was born in 69. Damn.
it's not cute. We're already at a bad start of me trying to argue like that she wasn't just a sex idol, okay? Like, girl, you're not helping your case right now.
No.
But she was born in 69 BCE in Alexandria, Egypt, the capital city of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Her lineage traced back to the Macedonian Greeks, specifically Ptolemy I Soter, one of Alexander the Great's generals who founded the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt after Alexander's death in 323 BCE. Thus, despite being born and raised in Egypt, Cleopatra was not of Egyptian descent. But with that being said, it's important to her story to understand some of that background. Like, how did an individual with no cultural or national ties to a thousands-year-old empire end up running it? All right, so just a warning, the Ptolemaic dynasty were perhaps some of the most unoriginal bunch when it came up to names in human history. all of the men were Ptolemy. Like all of them. They may have something like Olytes or Alexander attached to the name, but all of them are Ptolemy. Okay. And if you're a girl, I guess you have 3 times the amount of choice. You get to be Cleopatra, Arsinoe, or Bernice. That's it. Those are your names. That's
Bernice
what you get
just
to pick
sounds
from.
like it's so far out there. It really
Well, I think like the Greek, and again, no quoting me on this, but I think like that's the anglicized like translation of it. But like we don't have one for Arsinoe, right?
Yeah, and
Cleopatra is
I
kind of just
wonder if it's
timeless.
Berniti.
But like I think it's like Bernica. I think it's like
Bernike?
Bernica.
Okay.
Like yeah, or like Bernice or Bernica, something like that. Which but again, don't quote me on that. But I know it's not actually Bernice, but that is like in all the sources, that's like that what they always end up translating it to is Bernice. So we're living with it. We hate that for them. Sucks to be Bernice.
A little
If you
bit.
have the name Bernice, it's a lovely name. Moving on. Combine that with the sheer prolific amount of inbreeding and shoddy records, and we have a real soup of who's who here. So we know it might get confusing. And honestly, you're not the only ones. Even historians are half the time. So we're going to have to try our best to try and provide a family tree on the site at some point, so it might make things easier to follow.
So to start with, her father was Ptolemy the 12th, Auletes, also known as Ptolemy, Neos, Dionysos, and nicknamed the flute player.
It feels like a homophobic slur.
Honestly,
It's not. He really didn't have like he was not known for partaking in certain those kinds of activities or anything. There's no record of that. But
no,
I don't
it
know.
does though.
You know,
It really does.
I feel like someone should have. Like they missed an opportunity there.
So he was a significant ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, though his legitimacy was often questioned. He was the father of the famous Cleopatra VII. His exact birth date is uncertain, but it's generally placed around 117 BCE, possibly in Cyprus, where his father was governor. He was the illegitimate son of Ptolemy IX, Lathros. Lathros? I think I got that right.
Like Lateros, something like that. Yeah,
Lathros?
something
Lathros.
like
Okay.
that.
The identity of his mother is not definitively known. She may have been an Alexandrian Greek concubine, a member of the Egyptian elite, or, as some modern historians argue, Cleopatra IV, who was divorced by his father and thus his birth might have been considered illegitimate due to her not being co-regent. His early life was marked by political instability within the Ptolemaic dynasty and increasing Roman influence in the region. In 103 BCE, when he was still a young boy, he and his brother were sent to the island of Kos for safekeeping by their grandmother, Cleopatra III. In 88 BCE, they were captured by Mithridates VI of Pontus, who was at war with Rome. They remained hostages until 80 BCE. Following the tumultuous deaths of his predecessors, Ptolemy XI, Alexander II, and Berenice III, goodness, I am like,
Yeah.
honestly,
See what
the
we mean?
Roman
Like,
numerals are like fucking me up, and I'm
well, and it's
surprised I
like,
haven't tripped over it yet, to be honest.
well, and like then you look at like Ptolemy the 10th or 11th, Alexander the second. Was there like two Ptolemy the 11th? Like I like those like things. Actually, what I think it was, if I remember correctly, was there was Ptolemy the 10th Alexander, and then this is Ptolemy 11th Alexander the second. Which I'm like, there's just a lot going on here.
Yeah,
Just
these
yeah,
good God, come up
and
with
like
different names.
his mom might also be his aunt. Like
Blech.
we don't know.
We
Like, well, his
don't
wife
know.
might be his aunt. Like,
That
uh,
yuck. Yuck,
yeah.
yuck, yuck. but the tumultuous deaths of his predecessors. The people of Alexandria invited Ptolemy XII to assume the throne in 80 BCE. His reign was officially backdated to his father's death in 81 BCE, effectively ignoring the brief reigns of Berenice III and Ptolemy XI. His shaky claim to the throne due to his illegitimate birth would heavily influence his reliance on Rome throughout his rule.
So, Ptolemy the Ninth, because we're going backwards a little bit, had a very complicated reign. It was marked by multiple expulsions and returns to the throne, often at the hands of his powerful but manipulative mother, Cleopatra III. I would love to know more about this lady. And like from other than Cleopatra out the Cleopatra, she's like kind of what the other really well-known women from this whole dynasty. The bits that I got, this lady is fascinating, but like it's just so many snippets, and it's a shame if no one's really done like an in-depth biography of her. And I
Well,
wish
it's
someone would,
it's
because
probably just because of all of the names and everything like that.
yeah,
It's really hard to see what is actually attributed to whom. Like even Cleopatra's mother was named
yeah,
Cleopatra, and we're not even sure
well, like
which
that.
Roman numeral to give that.
But like that's the thing with like Cleopatra III, like she was a mover and shaker, so we do know actually, quite a bit, and can definitely attribute things to her. It's just like one of those things that it's like a lot of like sources all over, and no one's come to take them all together and make something more comprehensive out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well, that sounds like
it's
something
like
that we can
it's like
do.
having 100 newspaper articles
Yeah.
but no one's wrote a biography. You know what I'm saying? That's more what it is. It's like, ugh, if someone would take the same amount of time for her as they did for the famous Cleo, and just saying, like, it could be done. Maybe one day I'll be that person, but probably not. Like, so it's a little outside my purview, but and that seems like overly ambitious for me. But I just want someone to do it. But anyway, I digressed. So, but who was she? As I was asking, who is Cleo the Third? Who is this lady? Or was she just using the tools she had? As you will see, this family made the ones from Game of Thrones look like the ones. Those people look like they're from the Disney Channel. Like, it's not great.
Mm-mm.
Not to mention, her male counterparts were guilty of the same things, but not labeled as such. So, like, just like our Cleo, the main Cleo, gets a bad rap, and we will talk about this. Men were doing literally the same things or participating with her in that activity, but they're not marked as being manipulative. They're being marked as brilliant, tacticians, political, geniuses. But if you're a woman, what are you, Courtney?
Chop liver.
Well, a
Or a whore.
manipulative bitch. You're a whore, a manipulative bitch.
Yep.
Because history
Hates women.
is hates women. So, and for Cleo 3, clearly that was not, and she was not exempt. Here's the thing, she could also just be a manipulative bitch.
I mean,
Maybe that's a fair
possibly.
assessment. But then also, so was her brother. But yet no one's saying that. Just saying. Like, anyway. So, as we just stated, be aware that in history, most women who come to power are set in that trope. And you should always question it. It's not to say that, like I said, that they can't be manipulative or any of the things, but most cases, portraying them this way directly benefit those who succeeded them. And those people often had personal vendettas. And rather unfortunately, as we've just kind of said, society and culture usually was inclined to easily accept that. It's sad because it's still happening today. And would happen to our own leading lady in this story. And as if to prove the point, Ptolemy X was also guilty of expelling him and seizing power. So Cleopatra III kicks and Ptolemy X both kick Ptolemy IX out, but she's the one who gets the blame.
Always. What a manipulative bitch.
Right. So he would ultimately rule in 3 separate stints, though, from 116 to 110 BC, from 109 to 107 BCE, and because this guy just doesn't know when to give up, finally in 88 to 81 BCE. I mean, guy know what he wants. I would have given up the first time. I've been like, I'm alive.
I'm gonna stay
You can
that
keep
way.
it. I'll say, you're telling me I have to stay on this island and be rich? I guess. I don't know, man.
Damn.
But third time was not the charm, because in his final reign, it ended with his death. Yay! While the exact circumstances of his death are not entirely clear in amounts, some sources suggest he died of natural causes, possibly in December of that year, around the age of 60. However, it wouldn't be fun if that's the way it went down, right? So there are other accounts that indicate he may have been killed by an outraged Alexandrian populace after he plundered the tomb of Alexander the Great to pay his troops during a rebellion. This act would have been seen as a sacrilege and deeply angered the citizens.
Oof. Next up was Berenice III. Berenice III was
Bernice.
Berenice. You know what? I'm gonna bring out my southern accent for this one. Next up was Berenice III.
I want to say her name's Bernie.
Bernie.
She was Bernie Sanders, daughter of Ptolemy.
Yes. But she was the daughter of Ptolemy IX Lathyrus, and thus Ptolemy XI's half-sister. She was a popular queen and had a significant role in the succession. She had been co-regent with her uncle husband, Ptolemy X Alexander I, from 101 to 88
right.
BCE. Yeah. Ew.
No, I was like, I was so upset. Like, why is he Alexander the Second? Like, oh, because I was right. It was Ptolemy X, Alexander the First, Ptolemy the 11th, Alexander the Second.
Yeah, no.
Tell me
I
if
don't
you're
like
confused yet. Tell me if you're confused yet.
I am more wound than a ball of yarn. I have no idea where we're going.
I mean, so's the family tree.
Pretty much, it's a wreath. But not even a full wreath. It's a fucked up wreath that has all sorts of twigs that are just going across. So after Ptolemy IX's death in 81 BCE, she reigned as the sole monarch of Egypt for a few months. She was very popular with the Alexandrian people.
Oh, that's nice.
However, the Roman dictator Sulla intervened and effectively forced her to marry Ptolemy the 11th, Alexander the 2nd. So she had the same name for the man, just had to put a second on there. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, at least it'll be easy for her to remember her new husband's name, right?
I mean, yes, just put a 2 on there. It's fine. So this was Ptolemy the 11th's cousin, son of Ptolemy the 10th, Alexander the 1st. This marriage was meant to stabilize the succession in a way favorable to Rome. First of all, who the hell asked this guy's opinion in the first place? The audacity of the Romans is mind-blowing. They like to paint a story about the Romans begrudgingly became an empire, but don't get it twisted. That is how the power of the Augustan propaganda working 2,000 years later. But also, God forbid, a woman be in charge without a male handler, even if they aren't even in your damn country. Seriously, the audacity. It reminds me of South America. Tangent incoming. But, well, surprise, surprise, the marriage proved disastrous. Just 19
Surprise,
days.
surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Just 19 days after their wedding in 80 BCE, Ptolemy the 11th murdered Berenice the Third.
No, not Bernie
She,
Sanders.
Murdy Sanders, no.
No,
Seriously, fuck you, Rome. Go fuck yourself, Rome.
God, you
Goddamn.
fuckers. She was doing fine. They killed Bernie Sanders. Everyone loved her. Ridiculous. So
That's why she had to die.
now, by process of elimination, at last, we have Ptolemy the 11th, the guy who just murked his sister wife. Yay! Cousin wife? Cousin sister wife. I'm sure she's a sister. Anyway, genetically. Anyway, again, surprising no one, his reign was exceptionally brief and ended violently, which, good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, making sure no one would have ever liked him, he was placed on the throne by Roman influence and forcibly married his sister wife, like we just said. Then we have his decision to murder his popular sister wife just 19 days into their marriage. Like, he didn't even give it a month.
No, that's damn, dude.
Like,
That's
what was the point?
not even 3 weeks.
Like, it feels like it should have been, like, it's inconvenient to have married her at that point. If you were just going to murk her, like, why bother? You could have just, like, I mean, it doesn't make you any less related, like, or more, you could have just murked her for being a woman. That's what everyone else did,
Mm-hmm.
and it would probably have been more successful. But whatever. But killing your sister wife, frowned upon, which I suppose the bar is on the floor.
The bar is in hell.
Yeah. And speaking of hell, I always say, like, the French really know how to throw a protest or a riot. Ptolemies must be their ancestors or the Alexandrians must be their, like, spiritual ancestor, because for real, whenever you hear about an Alexandrian uprising, it's brutal and does not end well.
No.
For the person in charge. So they murked him. Because what the fuck, dude? Like, you killed.
and it's nice that they actually liked her, which honestly, like, makes that so much more tragic and fucked up. Just because actually
Yeah.
having a ruler that the people approve of, like, that is good shit and very rare.
Yeah. Well, and she was a woman. Like, yeah, 6 months is not a long time, but as we're going to see in the story, there's people who, women come to rule and stuff like that, and, like, they need, in the same amount of time, they get murked because they don't like them, right? But, like, here they seem to be doing a good job, at least as much of a good job as you can do in 6 months, I suppose. But, like,
Yeah.
people like, if the Alexandrians like you, you're doing something right. So,
Agreed.
in response to her absolutely unnecessary murder, the enraged citizens of Alexandria rioted and they lynched him, strung him up. Ptolemy the 11th, Alexander the 2nd, was lynched in the gymnasium in April 80 BCE. And no one is sad about that.
Nope.
No
Deserved
one.
it.
Nope.
Boo
Yep.
hiss.
Screw you, guy. This series of violent and politically charged deaths left the Ptolemaic throne vacant and created a volatile environment in which Ptolemy XII, an illegitimate, quote, son of Ptolemy the Ninth, who had been held captive by Mithridates, was called back to Alexandria to become king. His quote-unquote illegitimate status and the chaotic circumstances of his predecessor's demise made him particularly vulnerable and reliant on external powers, especially Rome, who, let's be clear, helped make this mess in the first place. I'm sorry, this is really sus. Not to mention that more than likely, he was probably not prepared for the burden of leadership, right?
Yeah.
As an illegitimate child, why would he be? He would have never been meant to rule. I mean, think about all the people that just died that were ahead of him, including a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think, I mean, like, yes, he was noble and educated, sure. But like you'll see this in history a lot, like with just spares, King Henry VIII is kind of a good example of this, like where they have no intention of you ever really ruling. And then whoopsie daisies, you died from like fever, or your brother died of fever randomly. And now all of a sudden, oh, now you're king.
Yeah.
Like,
Imagine how
get your
fucked
shit
up that would
together.
be. It's just like I'm gonna live a life of relaxation and just not having to do that shit. Oh fuck, you put the
Well, like,
crown on me. God damn it.
like Eleanor of Aquitaine's like first husband there, it's Philippe or Louis, it's one of them. They always go back and forth between like the two, but I forget which one it is this time. But like he was a spare, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like very quiet, reserved, bookish. He was going to be a monk. Like they were raising him to be like, which just happens a lot in like
Oh
European royalty later on. Is usually the spare ends up like going into like church service, like they're like the archbishop or some bull crap, right?
yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
where they can still be powerful, but like not be a challenge to the ruler, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
then his brother decides to just rudely die. So now all of a sudden he's been his
He
whole
just
life,
wants to really die.
but like trained for a completely different job.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, well, you dumbass. Well, why weren't you prepared? And you're like, and this is kind of what this gives the vibe. He was raised to be like just a rich, fun loving kid, like rich kids who didn't have to worry about the burden of like rule, right? We're supposed to be artists and like patrons of the arts and like things like that to like stimulate the communities through their wealth and shit like that. So like the flute player, the guy who's more into theater and art and plays, I wonder if this is where that came from, right? Because he was
Probably.
never meant to be there. So, but I digressed a lot there.
It
Ptolemy
happens.
XII's status as an illegitimate son, combined with the will of Ptolemy the XIth, potentially bequeathing the Egypt to Rome, made his claim precarious. Like, could you imagine if the president of the United States died and his will, he just like gave it to Canada? Who
I mean, I
who
think we
does
would
that?
all cheer, but at the same
I
time,
know, I know.
it's just, oh, Canada.
Actually, let's change that around. He gives it to Russia.
Oh, yeah, no, fuck that.
That's more realistic. But no, for real, like, could you imagine? Like, and like, I get it. People are gonna be like, well, they're kings. They're like, yeah, but like, you still have, even when you're an absolute ruler,
Mm-hmm.
like, you're dead. How are you going to enforce, right? Like, all
Yeah.
you're going to do is piss people off. You're just destabilizing your own nation.
But
Like,
they
it
do that on
doesn't make
purpose.
sense.
No, they do that on
Like,
purpose. Like if you truly think about it, people that are that fucking hard on for rule and hard on for, you know, being in charge, they don't want somebody to be succeeding them.
well, like, there's also this, like, cultural thing. And this is why, like, again, Rome tries to be like, oh, we didn't want to be an empire. Fake news, bitch. Because down the road, you may have heard of her, Boudica. Similar crap went down,
Yep.
right?
I can't wait
Like,
to cover Boudica.
like, but it's like this idea of like, oh, when we colonize you or want your territory, so then when we help you or we support you or whatever, and then when you die, those lands are going to be left to us. And then God forbid you don't, well, then you end up with people like Boudica, because they do terrible things to you. And then Boudica says hell to the nah. But like you see, like this is a thing. Like Rome comes in and just, oh well, they just gave us the land. They loved us so much they left us in the well. Thank you. So like there's not quite yet, but like this is clearly like, I mean, come on. Come on. There's
Yeah.
a pattern, you know. So the Alexandrian populace was not thrilled. And as we know, they get real lynchy and real stabby real quick. So, shortly after his ascension, Ptolemy the 12th married Cleopatra the 5th, who is conventionally described as his sister, but was likely also his cousin and niece.
Ugh.
Which, wow. Anyway,
The family
I
tree is
can't even.
braided.
Yeah,
Ugh.
but I can't even. I'm trying to like imagine how that works. I can't. Like it just like I can't figure it out.
No,
It's almost harder than
no,
just not doing this. like,
here's
like
the thing.
it almost needs like a new name. Like you can't
It
be all of these things.
really
You have to have a new
does.
thing.
You do, and at the same time, like I'm sitting here and I'm just all I can hear is that really old song, I'm my own grandpa, in my head, and I'm just like it's so true though. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
like
scary.
Cersei and her brother have nothing on this. Like,
Yeah.
God. This marriage, though, was a standard Ptolemaic practice to quote unquote strengthen the royal legitimacy and produce heirs. I
Creepy.
will say, as a side note, like the amount of inbreeding here, I'm more surprised they really weren't deformed and messed up. Like, more so. Like, you don't really
Mm.
hear a lot of that. You don't
I
really hear
honestly
about that.
I wonder how many miscarriages happened because I can
Oh, for
almost
sure.
guarantee they had
Yeah.
some they
Yeah,
woof.
but like the Habsburgs have the Habsburg jaw.
Yeah.
Tutankhamun, an Egyptian parallel here, was known for his messed up leg, bad teeth, all these
Yeah.
health problems because he was so inbred. And it's like, again, this is not like their first dabble into sister loving, like this is, if we've gotten to the point where your cousin, sister, nieces, and
Yeah.
nephews, like
That's just
we've
it's
we dabbled for a
creepy.
while. And that's why I'm more surprised than anything else that like you don't really hear even in the Roman propaganda, like that these people weren't all fucked up and fugly, you know,
Yeah.
like I just find that interesting.
It is
So
interesting and I almost wish that we had like the DNA just to look
yes,
at it. Just
well,
to look at it.
I was just thinking that too. Like God, I culturally, of course, I would love to find Cleopatra's tomb because like she's a queen, But like just from the genetic standpoint, I'm like, okay, I think this is just going to answer a lot of these family tree questions. Like we
Yes.
need
We
to
need to
figure
know.
this out.
All right. So, back to it. So, while we are here to talk about the mother of Cleopatra the Seventh, to start with, she is widely believed to be Cleopatra the Fifth, Tryphania, who was the only surely attested wife of Ptolemy the XII. However, as we are starting to get used to here, the available information on her background and exact role leading up to Cleopatra the Seventh's birth is somewhat limited and subject to historical debate due to the scarcity of clear records. Part of that scarcity is, of course, time. 2100 years is a long time to hold on to any record of anything. But throw in that she's a woman, there are two things that up until very modern times historians didn't give a damn about: children and just women in general. To modern audiences, this might come as a shock, but that's why in a lot of these stories, our characters seem to come out of nowhere, fully formed. It's also why there is so much speculations for motives of their actions. We now know that that's a lot of how we function as adults are influenced in these formative years. Also, women matter, like no explanation needed, and honestly we should have known that one, but it's female erasure. That's just the nature of it. But
or
one of the
in layman's
things
terms, or in layman's terms, history is a bag of dicks.
History is
Yeah,
a
like
bag of dicks. Ah.
professional term. You heard it from me.
It's a fucking sausage party. Oh, God. But one of the things we are looking to do here is fill in some of those blanks with our main characters. The actions of Cleopatra's ancestors and conflicts that arouse, and conflicts
Oh,
that arose during her childhood most certainly had an effect on her later. Fortunately, we have quite a bit of info to help us along, or at least we have more than nothing, unlike her mother.
so on that note, here's what is known or generally theorized about her mom. Her parentage is not definitively recorded. So this leads to several theories. She may have been the illegitimate daughter of Ptolemy the Ninth, the same dad as her husband, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or a illegitimate daughter of Ptolemy the Tenth. Either of those don't seem great, but I guess one would make her less of a half sibling. But some sources suggest she was the daughter of Ptolemy the Tenth and Bernice the Third, which I don't get. But
That makes no
whatever.
sense.
No, I'm getting the Ptolemies mixed up. I'm thinking, how the hell does she get? I mean, that would have been one hell of a pregnancy, 19 days, but that's one hell of a preemie. But I'm like, oh, that's the
No,
11th.
that's
That's
the
the 11th.
second. That's Alexander the Second, Ptolemy 11th, Alexander
Yeah.
the Second. Okay.
Not telling
Okay.
me 10th Alexander the First. Different person. Different person.
True.
Okay, so that makes sense again.
So we're
Again,
even getting
cousins.
confused. We're terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, right. Um, but anyway, if she was the daughter of Ptolemy the Ninth, she would be Ptolemy the Twelfth's half sister. The traditional Ptolemaic practice of sibling marriage makes the quote unquote sister designation in Egyptian texts ambiguous and is often referred to as a familial relationship rather than a literal sibling. Like, again, if we couldn't make this any more complicated, we don't even know when she was born or how old she was during any of the events that she was mentioned to be a part of. She could have been 10 years old or 30 years old when she was married, for all we know. And yet, that is a problem, right? Those are two completely different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Was she a child bride? Was she an adult? Who knows? We just don't have any good answers. And therefore, because of this, we can't even speculate. But fast forwarding a lot, however old she was, she married Ptolemy the 12th in 79 BCE, shortly after his ascension to the throne. They were recognized as co-rulers and received divine worship as Theoi, Philopatrones, Kai, Philadelphoi, father, brother, and sister-loving gods.
I want to throw up.
Mm.
Uh-uh.
I mean, like, if it wasn't literal, right? Because you'd be like, how kings would sometimes talk to each other and be like, my brother or like my sister, like old
Yeah.
timey talk. But like, and I think that's kind of like what they're trying to do. But we also know they could be at least two of these things. Ugh.
Yeah, they could be
But
very, 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 very literal.
Cleopatra V initially served as co-regent with Ptolemy the 12th, with her name appearing in official documents and monuments alongside his from 79 BC onward.
With that being said, Cleopatra V's relationship with her children is a complex topic, largely due to the limited and sometimes contradictory ancient sources. While she was undoubtedly the mother of some of Ptolemy XII's children, the exact number and her role in their lives, especially after her disappearance from the records, are a matter of historical debate. So, Berenice IV is almost universally accepted by historians as the legitimate daughter of Cleopatra V and Ptolemy XII. Her birth is typically placed around 78-79 BCE, making her Cleopatra VII's older sister. She will be really important later on, but for now, that's all we will say on it. So, Cleopatra VII. Around the time of Cleopatra VII's birth in 69 BCE, Cleopatra V's name began to disappear from monuments and papyri. A papyrus from 69 BCE, where she would typically be mentioned if alive, notably omits her name. This disappearance has led to various theories. One possibility is that she died around this time, possibly even during childbirth. Another theory is that Ptolemy XII repudiated her or cast her aside, possibly due to political reasons or simply personal preference, as he was known as a womanizer. If divorced, she would have stopped being part of public life. Then there is what seems like the craziest option. It ultimately expands on the second theory. There is also a complex historical debate about whether Cleopatra V is the same person as Cleopatra VI, who later co-ruled with Berenice IV during Ptolemy XII's exile in 58 to 57 BCE. If they are the same, then Cleopatra V did not die in 69 BCE, but simply went into seclusion or was removed from public life by her husband. If they are different, then Cleopatra VI would have been a daughter of Ptolemy XII and Cleopatra V. Most modern historians lead towards the view that Cleopatra V and the supposed Cleopatra VI are the same person, meaning she lived until about 57 BCE. Despite the uncertainty surrounding her disappearance, most scholars believe Cleopatra V was indeed the mother of Cleopatra VII. Had Cleopatra VII been illegitimate or born to a concubine of lower status, her Roman enemies would likely have exploited this fact, as they could never have enough reasons to hate on her. But for all intents and purposes, Cleopatra VII was accepted as a legitimate princess by her father and presented as his heir, and this supports Cleopatra V being truly her mother. While some theories suggest Cleopatra VII's mother might have been an Egyptian noblewoman, the prevailing view is that it was Cleopatra V, who, to put it plainly, was Macedonian Greek. I know that will disappoint some of you guys, but that's what the evidence points to. So Arsinoe IV, Ptolemy XIII, and Ptolemy XIV. However, due to the uncertainty of her ultimate fate that we just discussed, here again is where things get sticky. The three younger children of Ptolemy XII are, of course, generally accepted as his, but whether Cleopatra V was their mother is less certain. If Cleopatra V died or was permanently sidelined in 69 BCE, then these younger siblings, Arsinoe, born in 65 BCE, Ptolemy XIII, born in 62 BCE, and Ptolemy XIV, born in 60 BCE, would have been born to another unknown mother or concubine of Ptolemy XII. Ptolemy XII was also known to be a womanizer, this making plausible scenario. However, and therefore, it is still possible that she was their mother, as her disappearance from the records doesn't definitively mean that she stopped bearing children. Some modern scholars, such as Christopher Bennett, argue that Cleopatra V was likely the mother of all of Ptolemy XII's known children. This view emphasizes the lack of definitive evidence for another mother and the dynastic importance of having legitimate heirs from the queen. Regardless of their mother, these siblings wow, siblings? We got siblings now. Siblings. These
It's from all that inbreeding.
It seriously is. These siblings played crucial, often tragic roles in Cleopatra VII's own reign, becoming her co-rulers and eventually rivals. In essence, Cleopatra V was undoubtedly a key figure in the continuation of the Ptolemaic dynasty through her marriage to Ptolemy XII and her role as a mother. While her relationship with her eldest daughter, Berenice IV, was clearly intertwined politically, especially during Ptolemy XII's exile, her personal relationship with her children, particularly Cleopatra VII and the younger siblings, remains largely speculative due to the historical gaps in our knowledge of her later life. In summary, Cleopatra V served as Ptolemy XII's queen and co regent from his ascension. She gave birth to his eldest known daughter, Berenice IV, and is widely considered to be the mother of Cleopatra VII. Her public presence ceased around the time of Cleopatra VII's birth, but whether this was due to death or a temporary removal from public life remains a subject of scholarly discussion.
Now, let's get back to who's important: men.
Ooh.
So while he was proclaimed king in Alexandria in 80 BCE, Ptolemy XII underwent a traditional coronation as pharaoh in Memphis of 76 BCE. This act aimed to solidify his legitimacy in the eyes of the native Egyptian population. He also embarked on a policy to improve the position of the native population, though this would be increasingly strained by his financial needs. To maintain his position and deter Roman annexation, Ptolemy XII embarked on a policy of extensive bribery towards powerful Roman figures. This began almost immediately and would be a defining feature of his reign. This led to massive financial difficulties for Egypt. He raised taxes, which caused widespread discontent among the Egyptian populace, and increasingly resorted to taking out massive loans from Roman bankers. As it's almost like he didn't get this training.
At
Huh,
all.
right. Hmm. It's almost like he wasn't trained to deal with the finances of an entire nation. Like that wasn't on his agenda originally. But anyway, if there was if there weren't enough problems, a constant threat hanging over his head was the alleged will of Ptolemy X, Alexander I, which purportedly left Egypt to Rome. Remember that? Remember that whole thing where apparently you can leave an entire country in your will to someone else? Like specifically another country that you have no
Makes total
familiar
sense.
relation to?
Makes
Like,
total
yeah,
sense.
yeah. But in that will, he left his entire nation if there were no surviving legitimate heirs. Although Rome did not immediately act on this, it provided a powerful pretext for Roman intervention and kept Ptolemy XII in a state of perpetual anxiety. During this period, Rome was rapidly expanding its influence in the East. Pompey the Great, who we talked about, a couple episodes ago, was actively campaigning in Anatolia and Syria, effectively dismantling the Seleucid Empire, aka the Persians, under a different name, and turning it into a Roman province in 64 BCE. This brought Roman power right to Egypt's borders, increasing the pressure on Ptolemy XII to remain on Rome's good side. Ptolemy XII sought formal recognition of his kingship from Rome. He understood that without Roman backing, his reign was always going to be vulnerable. In 63 BCE, he attempted to forge a patron client relationship with Pompey by sending him lavish gifts and inviting him to Alexandria. Pompey accepted the gifts, but refused the invitation. That's nice of him. Like, thanks for the stuff, but no.
I mean, it was more of a bribe, and he was just like, you see, nothing here forces me to act, so I'm gonna take the stuff.
Oh,
You stay over
yeah,
there.
and you have to think from Ptolemy's position, right? Why does he want Rome's opinion so bad? Because as of right now, if Rome just leaves it unread, if Rome ever decides to, they could just one day go, well, you're not legitimate. We're taking over.
Exactly.
If they go, yeah, we acknowledge you as king, that's an acknowledgement of legitimacy, therefore canceling that will out, legally speaking. So like you can kind of understand, it's not just that he's just like hot for Rome. It's like if he can get that approval, he can like finally like not worry about them. But, Rome knows this too. And as of right now, they don't want to necessarily deal with the pressure of ruling a country that doesn't even want them there, but they want the
Yeah.
kickbacks of like they did, It's not
Mm-hmm.
convenient for them to own it right now.
Yeah.
But this will change. A
Eventually.
significant moment came in 65 BCE when Marcus Licinius Crassus, yep, that Crassus, you know, the landlord from hell, a
Oh yeah.
powerful Roman senator, proposed that Rome annex Egypt. Because of course he did. He's the landlord from hell. And I
He
bet you on there, he's like, and you can make me in charge.
fucking
That's who he is.
slumlords. Can't
Uh,
stand them.
but this proposal ultimately failed. And you might be thinking, well, why? Wouldn't they want it if it's so rich? Well, it failed due to the opposition from Cicero and others who feared that such a move would give too much power to any general who conquered Egypt. However, it served as a stark reminder of the ever present Roman threat and reinforced Ptolemy XII's strategy of appeasement through bribery. In 60 BCE, Ptolemy XII famously traveled to Rome to negotiate official recognition to his kingship, which that's kind of sad, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's bribed them, like, hey, come on over, recognize me, And he's like, they're like, la la la, never got your message. So then he's literally going all the way over there.
Yep.
Like, that's not a good look,
You know
you
what?
know?
Like, oh my
It
gosh.
doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good, and I'm trying to remember. You know what? I'll drop it for now just because my mind is not in order, but this very much parallels a couple of things in my mind of like present day politics.
Well, and like the thing is like this again really speaks to me that he wasn't really ever meant to rule because like someone who was raised believing that they have the right to rule wouldn't give what it says on paper, you know? And we see this happen with other rulers later on in crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even with Cleopatra. But this definitely comes off as a man who was not raised to feel that he had a right to rule, right? Or else he wouldn't be looking so desperately outside of his own kingdom for that
Yeah,
approval, right? So
absolutely.
also he would have been trained to know that that's not a good look, you know? So it makes you look weak.
It really
You're
does.
focusing on the wrong people, you know? So he traveled to Rome and there in Rome was the newly formed first triumvirate. That would be Pompey, Crassus, and soon to be, and then making it another cameo, Julius Caesar. He might be important. Keep an eye on him.
Mm-hmm.
He successfully secured this recognition finally in 59 BCE, but at the enormous cost of 6,000 talents. You're like, okay, well, what the hell's that? Just it's very hard to convert in like a tangible, like our modern sense of money. But essentially, the sum was equivalent to Egypt's entire annual revenue, like in the country's entire, like all the money that anyone makes. I'm not talking about taxes. I'm talking about everyone, like your paycheck, my paycheck, everyone's annual paycheck.
Yeah, no, hell no.
That like literally everyone's money. This massive bribe further crippled Egypt's finances, and not surprisingly, as you have just said, the Egyptians were like, oh, hell nah. They were pissed.
Oh God, I mean, I know I would be. I'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you?" But now we are getting ahead of ourselves, so this is where we will leave it at this time. Cleopatra was simultaneously born into the wealthiest and most powerful family on earth, as well as the most dangerous one. All of the intrigue, betrayal, and violence that had plagued the dynasty for centuries would come to a crescendo with her. Next time, we will take just a step back and focus specifically on her now, exploring her childhood and formative years in this house of sin. I'm sure she will come out fine and not be traumatized by any of this at all. And I'm sure that it will have absolutely no influence on her future actions as an adult, right?
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, yeah. So, if you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review on whatever and all platforms you listen to this podcast on. It goes a long way for us to appease the algorithm gods and get this suggested to others just like you. The more we can connect to our fellow history nerds, the more we can build up a community and keep the show going. So, wherever you're listening to this, whether it be Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube, if you like us, take the time to give us a positive review. It goes a long way for us.
Also, we have a Patreon where you can hang out with us and get exclusive content like video casts where we might try to make some ancient recipes, talk about topics that couldn't fit into the main arcs of the podcast, and just generally being batshit and dumpster fires. All for the price of a latte per month. Research materials and books cost a lot of money, and it takes us a lot of time to create this show, so anything that you can provide would be a huge help.
If you have any ideas, comments, or just want to say hi, you can reach us at timetravellersclubpodcast@gmail.com.
We can't wait to see you again next week, and as always, thank you for listening. Have a good one.
Bye for now.